Sexual magic, real superstitions of the fatal Femme Fatale curse. Ever felt a chill creep up your spine hearing those old tales? Stories of women whose beauty wasn't just captivating, but a weapon, whose touch could literally spell doom. Well, what if those stories weren't just stories at all? Imagine for a moment a world where a lover's gaze could actually be a death sentence, where desire itself was a pipeline for dark, dangerous powers. For centuries, whispers of such women, the femmes fatales, have haunted cultures all over the globe. But these aren't just the stuff of overactive imaginations or Hollywood plot lines. We're about to pull back the curtain on something much more chilling: the very real superstitions, the ancient beliefs in sexual magic, and the terrifying curses that breathed life into the legend of the fatal woman. The femme fatale. Just saying the words paints a picture, doesn't it? Intoxicating beauty, an allure that's impossible to resist, and almost always total destruction. She's the siren luring sailors to their watery graves, the enchantress weaving spells of ruin, the woman whose love is like a poisoned drink. But where did this incredibly potent idea really come from? It's a figure woven deep into the fabric of pretty much every ancient culture, popping up in creation myths, religious texts, and all sorts of whispered folklore. Today, we're not just looking at a literary character. We're peeling back the layers of history to investigate the genuine, often terrifying, superstitions about sexual magic and curses that actually shaped these legends. We'll take a journey from ancient goddesses who laid divine curses on their unlucky lovers, all the way to medieval European beliefs that painted seductive women as witches wielding a deadly kind of charm. This is the story of how deep-seated fears and mystical beliefs about feminine power and sexuality created one of the most enduring and frightening figures in human storytelling. Get ready to discover the real superstitions behind the fatal femme fatale curse. Section 1. Ancient roots and mythological beginnings, when gods cursed lovers. Our dive into the heart of the femme fatale curse kicks off in the mists of ancient times, a world where gods and goddesses mingled with mortals, and their passions and their anger knew no limits. In this ancient world, the line between the divine, magic, and mortal danger was terrifyingly thin. Many of the earliest femme fatale figures weren't even human. They were powerful deities whose love, or whose scorn, could unleash absolutely devastating curses. Take the Mesopotamian goddess Ishtar, also known as Inanna. She was one of the most important goddesses, and her desires were legendary. When the hero Gilgamesh dared to reject her advances, her fury was off the charts, leading to terrible consequences for him and his people. This wasn't just a case of romantic rejection. This was a divine power being snubbed, and an act like that was basically an invitation for catastrophe. Across the Mediterranean, Greek mythology is just packed with goddesses whose love affairs ended in tragedy, often sealed with a nasty curse. Aphrodite, the Olympian goddess of love, beauty, and pleasure herself, was definitely not someone you wanted to cross. She was notorious for inflicting terrible wrath on anyone who disrespected her, scorned love, or even gossiped about her flings. Think about Eos, the goddess of the dawn. After she hooked up with Ares, who happened to be Aphrodite's lover, the goddess of love cursed Eos with an insatiable, unending desire for young mortal men. This, as you can imagine, led to a whole string of tragic abductions and messy relationships. The sirens, too, those beautiful nymphs whose enchanting songs lured sailors to their doom on rocky shores, were said to have been cursed by Aphrodite for rejecting love, their bodies transformed into those of birds. Even Medusa, the snake-haired Gorgon whose gaze turned men to stone, has a story rooted in divine payback. In some versions, she was a beautiful maiden, a priestess of Athena. But after Poseidon violated her inside Athena's temple, it was Athena who cursed her. Her beauty was twisted into a monstrous power that guaranteed a life of loneliness and made her a bringer of death. While some see Medusa as a victim, her story became a chilling example of beauty turned into a fatal weapon by supernatural forces. These aren't just quaint old myths, you know. They reflect a really profound ancient belief. That feminine power, especially when tied to sexuality and divine status, could be a source of immense danger. These goddesses, with their power to bless and to curse, laid the very first stones for the femme fatale archetype. Their stories were powerful warnings. Scorn a powerful woman, divine or not, and you might just pay with your life, your sanity, or even your soul. The curse wasn't always a magic spell spoken out loud. Sometimes, it was the inherent destructive potential believed to live within such potent femininity when it was provoked. These old stories established that a woman's allure could be fundamentally linked to peril, a theme that would keep echoing and changing for thousands of years. Section 2. Medieval nightmares, witches, seduction, and fatal allure. As the ancient world faded and medieval Europe emerged, the image of the fatally alluring woman took on a darker, much more sinister vibe. The divine curses of goddesses started to look more like diabolical pacts made by witches, and the fear of sexual magic got tangled up with religious paranoia and social control. During the European Middle Ages, the whole idea of unrestrained female sexuality was often viewed with a whole lot of suspicion and fear. It was a common belief that women with strong sexual appetites were more likely to fall under demonic influence. This widespread anxiety created the perfect breeding ground for the witch hunts that would later sweep across the continent. Even before the big witch trials, witchcraft was often part of folk tradition, seen as superstition where people, mostly women, used magic to cause misfortune. Celtic and Irish folklore, for example, are full of tales of supernatural women, banshees whose wails predicted death, fairy queens who lured men into otherworldly realms, and sorceresses like Morgan Le Fay from Arthurian legend. Morgan Le Fay, who started out as a powerful fairy goddess figure, was increasingly shown in the medieval period as a complex, jealous temptress, using her magic and allure to manipulate and endanger the knights of the Round Table. She really embodied that mystical femme fatale, both incredibly magical and dangerously sexual. The idea of the curse became more directly linked to deals with demonic forces. Witches were believed to get their powers, including the power to seduce, corrupt, and destroy men, through a formal pact with the devil. The Malleus Maleficarum, or Hammer of Witches, a pretty infamous witch-hunting manual published back in 1486, played a huge role in solidifying these beliefs. It argued that women, because of their supposed weaknesses and insatiable carnal lust, were more prone to witchcraft than men. This text, and others like it, spent a lot of time on the supposed sexual interactions between witches and demons, fueling the idea that a witch's seductive power was a direct sign of her allegiance with evil. Think about the popular medieval trope of the wayward nun, a figure who had supposedly ditched her sacred vows to lure men with her sexuality, seen as a blatant act of defiance against religious and social rules. These stories, even if sometimes satirical, hammered home the idea that female sensuality, if left unchecked, could be a tool of trickery and damnation. The curse delivered by such a figure often wasn't a physical act of violence. It was a more sneaky kind of corruption, leading to spiritual ruin, madness, or being cast out from society. The sexual magic attributed to witches wasn't really about love potions in a romantic sense. It was about a terrifying, supernaturally charged allure that could trap a man's soul, leading him away from God and straight to damnation. The fear was that having sex with a witch, or even just falling under her seductive spell, was basically asking for a fatal curse. Intelligent, knowledgeable women sometimes found themselves branded as witches with otherworldly sexual powers, used to entrap otherwise godly men. These medieval beliefs cemented the femme fatale, not just as a dangerous woman, but as a potential agent of supernatural evil. Her beauty became a deceptive mask for a soul in league with dark forces, capable of inflicting curses that went way beyond simple earthly misfortune. This was a big shift, where the fatal woman became a symbol of heresy and a direct threat to the established Christian order. Section 3. A World of Deadly Women, Global Echoes of the Fatal Curse. The fear of the fatally alluring woman, armed with supernatural powers or a deadly curse, isn't just a Western thing. This archetype pops up across continents, in all sorts of different cultures, each with its own unique spin but sharing that common thread of dangerous seduction. In Slavic folklore, especially from Bulgaria, we meet the Samodiva. These are beautiful forest nymphs, often shown with long flowing hair, whose enchanting appearance hides a deadly nature. They'd lure men, often shepherds or travelers, into their dances. Entranced by their beauty and supernatural grace, these men would dance until they literally died of exhaustion. A chilling example of a lure leading directly to a fatal end. Their beauty was, quite literally, a weapon. If we journey over to East Asia, Korean folklore gives us the gumiho, a nine-tailed fox spirit. The gumiho often takes the form of an exquisitely beautiful woman, using her irresistible charm to seduce men. But her intentions are far from romantic. She's usually aiming to eat their hearts or livers to gain more power or become fully human. This figure perfectly blends potent erotic allure with lethal predatory intent. A classic femme fatale who embodies deception through beauty. From West Africa, there's the complex figure of Mami Wata. She's a powerful water goddess, often described as incredibly beautiful and captivating. Mami Wata can bring great fortune and blessings to those who worship her, but she's also known for her temper. If she's betrayed or disrespected, especially by a lover she has chosen, her enchantment can turn into a devastating curse, bringing ruin and misfortune. She truly embodies the duality of feminine power, both life-giving and potentially life-destroying. In the Philippines, the manananggal is a terrifying creature of the night. By day, she might look like an ordinary, often beautiful woman, but at night, her torso detaches from her lower body, sprouts bat-like wings, and she flies off looking for prey. While her targets can vary, she's often depicted preying on unsuspecting men, using her allure to draw them close before revealing her horrific true form. The link between seduction and vampiric predation is pretty stark here. Japanese folklore offers us the kuroneko, or black cat ghosts. These tales often feature ghostly women, sometimes the spirits of wronged women seeking revenge, who appear as beautiful seductresses to samurai. Their allure is a trap, leading the samurai to their doom as an act of vengeance. The sexual encounter becomes the direct path to a fatal curse or supernatural payback. Even in German folklore, the legend of the Lorelei echoes this theme. She's a siren-like figure, a beautiful maiden who sits on a rock overlooking the Rhine River, combing her golden hair and singing an enchanting song. Sailors, mesmerized by her beauty and voice, would get distracted from navigating the treacherous waters, crash their ships, and drown. Her passive beauty and song act as an unintentional, yet still fatal curse on those who fall for her charm. These diverse examples, from the forests of Bulgaria to the waters of the Rhine, from the spiritual landscapes of Korea and West Africa to the folklore of Japan and the Philippines, showed just how universal the femme fatale archetype, tangled up with supernatural danger, really is. Whether it's through an active curse, a predatory nature, or an inadvertently fatal charm, these figures from global folklore all highlight a deep-seated cross-cultural anxiety. That profound beauty and potent female sexuality can be undeniably linked to peril, misfortune, and even death. The methods might change, but the message is eerily consistent. Section 4. The Dark Arts of Desire, how sexual magic and curses were believed to work. So, the power of the femme fatale in these superstitious stories wasn't just her beauty, it was her supposed ability to wield sexual magic and deliver potent curses, often tied directly to intimacy itself. But how exactly was this dark allure thought to actually work? What were the supposed mechanics behind these fatal attractions? Across many cultures, there was a powerful superstition linking sexual encounters, particularly with women believed to have supernatural abilities, directly to illness, a draining of vitality, madness, or even death. This wasn't just a metaphor like dying of love. It was a literal belief in the transfer or theft of life force. Vampire myths are a perfect example, where seduction is totally inseparable from the act of draining life. The vampire, often portrayed as an alluring figure, uses sexual charm to lure victims into a deadly embrace, an act that offers a twisted kind of ecstasy while leading to annihilation. In witchcraft legends, having sex with a witch was often seen as a binding act, something that could seal a man's fate or place him under a fatal curse. The earliest stories often described the femme fatale as having powers to hypnotize victims with magic spells and potions, wielding a kind of supernatural sexual control over men. The idea wasn't always that the woman consciously willed harm through a specific incantation during intimacy. Sometimes it was her very nature, or her pact with darker forces, that made her touch, her gaze, or the sexual act itself a channel for negative energy or demonic influence. Consider the Icelandic hidden women, or female trolls. They were believed to curse men who crossed them or broke promises made to them. The curse was typically delivered through words, often after a slight or betrayal, but its effects, misfortune, madness, or death, were devastating. The thing that triggered the curse was often a failure to respect the supernatural woman's terms, or crossing a boundary she had set, frequently after a period of intimacy or seduction. The concept of the evil eye, found in tons of cultures, also ties into this. A woman of intense beauty or mysterious power might be believed to possess the evil eye, capable of inflicting harm or bad luck with just a glance, especially if she felt jealousy, envy, or scorn. While not always explicitly sexual, the power of such a gaze, coming from an alluring woman, could easily be mixed up with a seductive, yet dangerous, magical ability. The demon Karina, from Judaic lore, was said to be the sender of the evil eye, and a look from her could supposedly stop cows from calving or even dry up the seeds of husbands. A pretty direct link between her gaze and male vitality or fertility. The femme fatale often embodies a symbolic duality. She represents both creation and destruction, life-giving allure and life-taking power. Romantic and Gothic art frequently explore this, portraying her as a figure who offers ecstasy but ultimately brings annihilation. This duality suggests that sexual magic wasn't always seen as an external spell, but an inherent, almost elemental force within the woman herself. A raw, untamed feminine energy that could be creative and nurturing, but if unleashed or scorned, could become wild and destructive. And what's more, curses were often believed to be a punishment for male wrongdoing or a failure to respect supernatural boundaries. The femme fatale, in this light, acts as an enforcer of these boundaries. Her sexual magic then becomes the mechanism by which the curse is delivered. The intimate connection provides the pathway for the destructive power to take hold. The act of seduction might be seen as a test, and failure, through disrespect, betrayal, or weakness, meant the curse was activated. These superstitions reveal a really deep-seated anxiety about the power of female sexuality and its potential to disrupt, to drain, or to corrupt. The magic was in the allure itself, amplified by supernatural belief, and the curse was the tragic, often fatal outcome of that dangerous desire. Connecting thread synthesis, weaving the web of fear. As we've journeyed from ancient goddesses to medieval witches and across global folklore, a pretty chilling pattern starts to emerge, doesn't it? The different tales of cursed lovers, seductive sorceresses, and deadly enchantresses aren't just isolated incidents. Instead, they're like threads in a vast, ancient tapestry of fear and fascination, all contributing to this enduring archetype of the femme fatale, whose allure is hopelessly tangled up with a curse. The historical basis for this terrifying legend isn't one single origin story, but a mix of deep-seated human anxieties. Fears about female autonomy, the potent and often mysterious nature of female sexuality, and the perceived fragility of male power and reason when faced with overwhelming desire. All of these played a crucial part. Superstitions about sexual magic provided a way to explain the unexplainable. How could such beauty lead to such ruin? Magic and curses offered an answer. The ancient goddesses set the precedent, powerful female figures whose love or anger could change destinies and bring ruin. Medieval beliefs then demonized this power, turning divine retribution into diabolical pacts, where a woman's sexual allure became proof of her league with evil. Global folklore, in its countless forms, echoed these themes, presenting a worldwide gallery of women whose embrace meant death, madness, or despair. The curse itself changed over time, from a divine decree to a witch's hex, from a vampire's bite to a spirit's vengeful act. But the core mechanism often remained tied to intimacy, to seduction, to the potent and perilous power attributed to the feminine. These superstitions collectively built the femme fatale into more than just a dangerous woman. She became a supernatural threat, her sexuality a weapon, her love a literal curse. Briefly, echoes in modern shadows. Now, these ancient superstitions and primal fears didn't just disappear with the rise of the modern world. Oh no, the figure of the femme fatale, steeped in sexual magic and carrying the scent of curses, just slunk out of the shadows of folklore and straight into the flickering lights of cinema and the pages of modern books. Think of the classic film noir era. Those smoky, shadowy films are practically defined by the presence of the femme fatale. You know, the woman in the slinky black dress with a hidden agenda, whose allure inevitably leads the poor male protagonist to his doom. While the openly supernatural stuff might be toned down, the essence of the curse is still there. Her love is still fatal, her charm a destructive force. She might use lies or manipulation instead of actual spells, but her power to enchant and destroy is a direct descendant of those ancient enchantresses and medieval witches. Gothic literature, too, is absolutely saturated with these figures, from the seductive vampires of the 19th century to contemporary versions in books and comics. Works like Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips' comic series Fatale explicitly blend seduction, curses, and immortality, showing just how enduring this archetype is. Even when a story tries to rationalize or demystify these figures, like in some Enlightenment-influenced Gothic tales where reason battles superstition, the archetype's core of dangerous allure often hangs on. The power of these legends, born from real superstitions, continues to captivate and terrify us, proving that the fatal femme fatale and her curse are far from dead. Conclusion. From the vengeful goddesses of ancient times who cursed their lovers with divine wrath, to the medieval witches whose charm was believed to be a fatal trap backed by demonic power, the historical and folkloric landscape is just littered with tales of the femme fatale. We've seen how genuine superstitions about sexual magic, the power of curses, and deep-seated societal anxieties about female sexuality all came together to create this terrifyingly captivating figure. The Samodiva dancing men to their deaths, the Gumiho eating hearts, Mami Wada's blessings souring into curses. These aren't just random stories. They are cultural echoes of a primal fear and a deep fascination. The belief that a woman's beauty could be a weapon, her touch a channel for supernatural harm, and her love a doorway to destruction, really shaped these legends. The fatal femme fatale curse wasn't always a formal spell. Often, it was the inherent danger believed to live within unchecked feminine power and desire, a perilous magic woven into the very fabric of her being. These ancient superstitions provided the raw material, the dark energy, that has allowed the femme fatale to haunt our collective imagination for centuries. A timeless testament to the terrifying power of allure when it's intertwined with the unknown. So, what are your thoughts on the femme fatale archetype? Do you know of other cultural examples of women whose beauty was tied to a curse or some kind of dangerous magic? We'd love to hear them. Share your insights in the comments below. If you found this journey into the dark history of sexual magic and fatal curses intriguing, please give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the shadowy corners of history and folklore. Until next time, maybe be a little careful who you fall for. You never know what ancient superstitions might be lurking just beneath the surface.